excited to have you here on this Friday, Junior. The last one in May. I can hardly believe it. Today is episode 33 of my I Love Learning podcast. And if you don't know me, my name is Dr. Gina Anderson, and I am the host of this podcast and the CEO of Luma Brighter Learning. Luma helps the transportation and logistics industry save lives through our award-winning connected learning platform. And if you follow me and follow us and subscribe to our YouTube, pretty soon we're going to have some exciting announcements at Luma. So I hope you follow the exciting journey ahead. If you want to learn more and watch our exciting journey, go to lumabrighterlearning.com. And I would love if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can do that by clicking the link in the comments. So if you are joining us today, I would love for you to share where you're joining us from around the world in the chat, because today our guest...
But let me just say to everyone, first of all, Gina, thank you for having me here.
You bet, Todd.
It is a delight to be here. My name is Todd Payne. And yes, that's right. I am joining you from Portugal. I'm an emotional intelligence coach, and I help couples and individuals to understand the why they are the way they are, why they have the fights they have, why they're stuck in the patterns that they're stuck in. Because we can treat symptoms, but I like to treat root causes, and that's really the work that I do. And mine has been a long and winding road. But the net is that as a young man, I was terrible with people, and it was a lifetime learning how people operate, how to talk to them, how to work with them, how to get them to work with one another. That ultimately led me into the work that I am doing now, the rock tumbler of life, as it were. But if you're going to get some tutoring in math because you're doing poorly in math, don't go to the kid who's acing class without doing homework. Go to the kid who failed the first time and is passing the second time, as that's the one who can show you how to do the work. And that's the kind of stuff that I do.
I love that. That's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that and your passion for helping. Where did this passion come from? Todd, where did it come from? Were you just kind of born with this passion, or did it sprout from somewhere?
No, the truth is that it sprung from my own struggles, as I mentioned, as a young man. Like I never felt comfortable with people. I never felt like I really understood. As a young man, I had a religious experience, which took me into the church. But when I told my father I wanted to be an ordained minister, he said, "You can't be a pastor. You're terrible with people." And that was this. I was so bad with people, I didn't even know how bad with people I was. It was really the many years that I served in the ministry and got better with people that I began to understand what my gift was. My gift wasn't actually as a minister. My gift was what I had learned in that time. And that's when I said, you know what, I'm going to leave the church and see if I can't take this and pay it forward. Because really what I see my mission as is to help other people stop banging their head against the wall. That was, the best thing about banging your head against the wall is how good it feels when you stop. And we are all stuck in patterns that the trouble is not that we don't know something's not right, or that we don't recognize the things about ourselves that we don't want. It's that we don't know that there's another choice. What else am I supposed to do? And that's really what I discovered. I was able to give voice to and show people another way. And I use a tool called the Enneagram to help folks find themselves and find a path forward and just find their partner.
Oh, I love that. Thank you, Anisha, for joining us from the UK. Look, Todd, we got people from all around the world coming in and listening. And Alyssa from Charleston, South Carolina. That's fantastic. Is that tool something can you talk a little bit about that tool and what it does and how it can help us?
Absolutely. So in a nutshell, the Enneagram is an ancient system. It's about, 2,500 or 3,000 years old. It was sort of handed forward through religious tradition. And indeed, I found it through the church, but it's not religious in any way in its own right. It's really just, it's different. It's a personality system, but it's different than, say, Myers-Briggs or DISC or Big Five, because instead of looking at the externals, how a person is in the world, it's really about the story we tell ourselves, that inner narration that goes on about who I am and what I deserve and how people treat me and what I should be doing. And we all have this talk all day. And the Enneagram
Mm,
helps us to identify that and where there are flaws in our logic or in our responses, or maybe not flaws even so much as patterns that serve us and at times and at other times do not, and help us to identify those times and places and alternatives when they don't serve us. And a lot of people use the Enneagram. In fact, I'd say most people use it as a
mm,
personal growth tool. But one of the things that I discovered in my relationship work
mm,
is that when we have a sneak peek behind the curtain of our partner, how they perceive the world, why they respond in the ways that they do, it creates this space between us. There's an
mm.
opportunity for empathy to bloom, and that I find then ends up being the fertile ground for reconstructing a relationship, to understand one another, to discover one another, to reconnect with one another. So this insight into ourselves and our partner and the patterns between us is transformative
Mm.
when we apply it to in an intentional way.
Wow. That is powerful. I love the word transformative. I mean, because it's so powerful to think that you can move yourself forward with a tool or mindset.
Hmm.
And I think about, was this something that you just really learned along the way? I mean, how did you come
Yeah.
about? Yeah, so tell me about
Great
that.
question.
Yeah.
So after being an ordained minister for about 14 years, I got a sabbatical.
Oh,
And my bishop said to me, what are you going to do on your sabbatical? It's not just a chance to sleep in on Sundays for a couple of months. You have to do
mhm.
something with yourself. And I was like, I don't know. I was just going to sleep in. He says, so he said, I think you should study the Enneagram. And he gave me a coach and he
Oh,
gave me some books. He understood that it would be something that served me well. And when I discovered the Enneagram for the first time, all the lessons that I had learned in the rock tumbler of life, all of
yeah.
the hard won lessons, all of a sudden there was this framework for them. There was this system that it was as do you
Wow.
remember them? Do you remember those crazy
Mhm.
3D images, but like when you look at them, they just look like visual noise. They're flat on the page.
Yeah.
But then you
Uh-huh.
let your eyes relax, and then the 3D
Mhm.
image, it was like that for me
Wow.
when I came into the Enneagram. And all of a sudden, people just made sense. And I wanted to run into the streets and share it with everybody that, oh, people that are so confusing and so unpredictable and so difficult and so frustrating actually make a lot of sense. And we can use this to interact with them and improve our relationships.
Wow. Yeah, that I put your website, Tim, put Todd's website up there. I wanted to provide that because I
Thank you.
noticed, yes, you have so many amazing resources that people can find and help them move forward. So I wanted to make sure that was on the screen so everyone could see and learn about you, Todd. That's so beautiful. What about keeps you happy every day and move forward? You have so much energy and you're such a bright light. Like, what is it? What keeps you happy?
Well, I've spent a long time sort of crafting a little life for myself that brings me joy, that keeps me afloat. I meditate, I garden, I paint watercolors. But
Oh,
what
I love
what
that. Wait, pause. You paint watercolors?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a
Whoa.
watercolor. I find anything with water. Gardening is
Mhm.
water. Watercolor.
Yeah.
Water is a wonderful teacher.
Oh.
There's so
Let's
much
put
to be
that quote
learned.
up there. That is true. It's like the reflective. I had show you this picture I took this morning. I'm going to show you this picture. I
Yeah.
don't know if you can see it, but look at the
Oh, that's
tree.
gorgeous. I want to paint that.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to
Yes.
paint
Look
that.
at
It's
it. It was,
gorgeous.
I ran this morning. It's like the water and the
And
reflection. What does that
the way
picture,
the light is
Todd,
coming.
what does
Yeah,
that picture say to you? What does
it's
that say to
stunning.
you? It's
Uh,
stunning.
yeah,
It's
it really
great.
is.
Yeah.
It gives me
Water.
there's some tranquility. When I see that picture,
Yeah.
I
Water
feel
is a
it's
wonderful teacher. So it
wonderful.
keeps
It's a
you
wonderful teacher.
happy.
But my passion, what
Yeah.
keeps me showing up and doing the part of my job I don't love, because every job has parts that we don't love, is that moment when I can share the experience that my client is having of themselves
Mm.
or of their partner
Mm-hmm.
in words that they look at me and they go, that's exactly it. And I can offer
Mm.
them this insight and there's with every client that I work with, there's a moment where all of a sudden everything comes into focus.
Oh.
And there's that's deeply joyful for me. That's really why I do the work is sort of setting people free almost.
Oh, wow.
When they all of a sudden have an understanding, an
Mhm.
explanation for why they do what they do, why their partner does what their partner does. It's yeah, it's a beautiful moment.
I love that. It's beautiful. I definitely think that I'm a learning scientist and I study the brain. And, I wanted to go back to the watercolor thing because the breathing that is happening while you do that work obviously is helping relax you and create, obviously, tap into your neurotransmitters. And there's, over 65 of them. So it's making you feel better. And you might not be aware, but it's happening, right? With the breathing and the connecting.
Mm-hmm.
So I really appreciate that. One of the things I've talked a lot about this season, so this is my second season, and I love to talk about the word winning.
Mm.
I was an athlete, and so like the concept of winning can mean something different to everyone. Like whether you're
Mm.
an athlete, whether you're a business owner, whether you're, waking up in the morning and you're going to say, I'm going to cancel today or I'm going to win. So Todd, what does winning mean to you? Like, what is that
Mm.
word like when you think about that? I mean, we're definitely winning in Portugal. I know that after we talked at the beginning about how amazing you feel, but what does it mean to you?
I think there would have been a time when I would have defined winning in terms of peaks
Mm.
or highlights, triumphs. But I have discovered as I have grown older, my wife and I have been married 25 years, that really winning is consistent contentment.
Mm.
I mean, I still have down days and down moments. There are still fights and there's still despair from time to time, but I don't want to define my life by those nadirs any more than that by the highlights. I think
Mm.
that if every day on a scale of -10 to +10, if every day is a +1 or a +2, I'm winning. I can't have every day at +7, and I certainly don't want every day at -5. But if I'm just
Yeah.
right at neutral, I'm just above there. I'm smiling. I'm noticing the flowers on the trees. I'm appreciating my wife. I'm happy with the place that I'm at in my life. That to
Mm.
me is winning.
Aw, absolutely, absolutely. I love that you work with relationships and people, because that's an interesting concept to think about when you talk about winning, and just being present in the moment. And we have, I started this podcast because I had individuals saying they were depressed. I mean, we live
Mm.
in this time and we talked
Hmm.
about this being in the US and this overwhelming feeling of what is it? Like weight, a cloud? I don't know, like something like the
Yeah.
the clouds are rolling in. And so
Hmm.
what would you tell someone that's listening today that is feeling like, they're not winning and they don't have a passion, like they don't get excited about watercolor or water and they don't really know how to move forward. Maybe they're going through a divorce or maybe they've lost their best friend, or they're really struggling. What would Todd tell them?
I'm sure that you can speak to this from a physiological perspective more than I, but from what I understand, fear is among the most powerful emotions, and it
Mm,
and it sort of elbows its way to the front of the line in our experience.
mm,
But really, there is another human emotion that is just strong enough that it can even elbow fear out of the line, and that is hope. So
mm,
usually, my message is hope is real. There's always hope.
mm,
And it may mean a shift in perspective. It may mean a shift in practice. um, but every time the sun rises, there's an opportunity to do things in a way we haven't done them before, and with new ways forward
mm,
come new outcomes. And I find a lot of folks, when I first encounter them, hope is a bare or sparse
Mhm.
commodity, something that's hard to come by. And so that's really the place I like to start. And when I work with my clients and I teach them the Enneagram, one of the first things we do is we look at your Enneagram type at its best. I want to remind you of what you have seen in your own life when you have been at your best. I want to paint a picture of what's possible when we make intentional, aware choices and work toward what's the best you. So I want to give hope out of the gate, because I think it is the horse that pulls our carriage forward.
Oh my gosh. And then it just ties back to winning, because I bet the best day that you see hope is a day that you would describe as a way that you feel like you're winning. So it's all connected. I definitely, there definitely is a ton of research related to, and I actually wrote my book on this specifically on the science of the chemicals in your brain,
Mm.
tied to how you feel and how you can imagine and visualize and release those
Mm-hmm.
chemicals to help you move forward. So hope, is trying to harness what that means to you. And a
Right.
lot of times, right, it's like going outside and just taking that deep breath.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes you don't even know where hope's going to come from, So I think it's
Mm-hmm.
sometimes hard for people who feel like they have no way forward to find that. So I definitely can appreciate that advice. Hmm.
And even if we can't necessarily spot it, just to hold the space open that it exists, that it's possible.
Mm.
The brain, as you know, the brain finds what it's looking for. So if we tell ourselves this is something that's possible, we begin to look for it and begin to recognize it. If we tell ourselves there is no hope, there's nothing that can be done, when hope comes along, we won't even recognize it for what it is.
Yeah, I think, it's interesting to think about when you lost everything. You lost your house,
Yeah.
it burned down. In itself is very traumatic. You lose
Yes, it was.
everything, you lost everything,
Yeah, my
and
youngest
somehow
had
you
to
found
run.
hope.
My
Mhm.
my youngest was home alone at the time of the fire with the dogs. She had to run from the house and didn't even get shoes on. I mean, it was a very scary time. We literally lost everything that we own, along with 1,000 other homes that day in our home near Boulder, Colorado. It was a devastating fire, and I've seen a lot of people still 3.5 years later angry. A lot of people
Mm,
still looking backward. Whose fault is this? How can we reclaim what once was ours? But I think that there's some destructiveness in that way of thinking,
mhm,
that they're kind of trapped in their own
mhm,
frustration. And I think, when we say, you know what, this is terrible, I wouldn't wish it upon a soul. I would never want it to happen to another human being. But in some ways, Gina, it was one of the best things that ever happened to us, because
mhm.
we saw it as a chance to see what was next and what was possible. And we now have a life we would never have imagined.
Right. I always find it, when you're at ground zero and you don't have anything, those are the times where you can look for hope and find ways. And at the end, like you said, you would have never imagined 10 years ago that you would be
Never.
where you are today in Portugal, living the best life you possibly could. But you had to lose and go through what you went through to get there. And that's the thing. When you go through hard times, you actually change a structure in your brain.
Yeah.
And you have to continue to focus and go move through that to get into that good space that you're in. And you don't wish that on anyone. But the
No.
reality is, there's good
There's
that comes
growth.
out of darkness.
Yep.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And with the work that I do with couples, I when we there's a process to discover if we're a good fit before we start working together. And in that process, I say to them, part of what I'm going to challenge you to do is face the fear and the challenge and the difficulty and the strangeness of getting what you actually want.
Mm.
Like moving from what you have to what you want is a weird thing. It's a strange reality
It's
to,
weird.
to have a new partner in your life, to have a new perspective, to have a new set of tools. There's a strange, an uncomfortableness to it, and that, you know, our willingness to be uncomfortable is an important part of this, part of this process.
Yeah, you have to be uncomfortable for any type of learning or growth. Like
Yep.
learning and growth at the true core takes difficult thinking. It's not, it doesn't happen overnight and it's a process. And so I love that point that it's uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable, but the beauty of it when you can get through it is rewarding. So I can
Yeah.
appreciate that so much. I really have enjoyed talking with you. Next week we have Max Farrell on my podcast. I know Max. I've known Max for about 10 years. He started a business. He sold his business just recently. So I'm really interested to hear how Max is doing. And also his company he sold was a retention engagement platform. What do you think we should ask Max next week? What should we ask him?
I actually would be really curious to learn about the role of empathy in the workplace. There is a sort of, it seems to me, a culture of the workplace is a place where the personal isn't there. It's not a place for feeling. It's not a place for,
Mm,
you know what I mean? And so I'm curious, and you think
I
about
like that.
retaining employees, and what does it mean to be empathetic to their experience, or to invite empathy between employees. I just have found in my line of work that empathy has been the single most transformative force. And so I would be curious if that was true in his realm, and what that looked like.
Yeah, I love that. I love asking about empathy. You know, it's interesting. I just wrote a coaching paper we're going to put out. And one of the things is you say you need to be empathetic, but what does that mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how do you become more empathetic? Like, like what it says on paper, but really that's a feeling and
Well,
how you do that. Mhm.
that's the work that I do, and let me give you a brief analogy if we
Yeah,
have a minute.
yeah, do that.
What I love to do is I have learned how to. I think about the Enneagram types. There are 9 personality types in the Enneagram, and I think about them like musical keys, like
Oh.
C or F sharp.
Mhm.
And there's a sort of melody that we each play. And what I have learned to do is take the melody from the key of type 2. My wife is type 2, and play it in the key of type 5. That's me. I'm type 5. And that's the
Okay.
work I do with people. Is I teach them the
Yeah.
and the reason I do it in your key is because then when I talk about pain or struggle or fear or difficulty or shame or anger, you're connecting it to your experience of those things, and I'm
Yeah.
connecting it to your partner's experience of those things, and I
Oh.
and I build the bridge of that empathy through this
Mhm.
insights about how we each play our different keys, but we're really playing some of the same songs.
And then the music can be beautiful,
Yeah,
right?
then
I
we can
love
harmonize. Then the
that.
objective is to harmonize. That's right.
That's incredible. All
That's
right,
right.
Todd, leave us with some inspirational words. I posted your website before, but tell everyone where to find you because I know it's not on LinkedIn. So let us
Sure,
know
I
where
am
people
on
can go.
LinkedIn. Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay.
You can find me there. Absolutely. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. My company is
Okay.
called Connect Fully because that's what we're about, connecting fully with yourself and
Oh,
with the people who matter the most to you. But we live in a world where you can spell things however you want, right? So I spell it with a K, KonnectFully. Email me at Todd@ConnectFully. I love to hear people's stories. I'm always learning. Everybody who's struggling has successes they could teach me. Everybody who's struggling, everybody who's succeeding has things that they can teach. So let's be in conversation. That's the
let's
place to
do
find
it.
me.
Connect. I like your company name. I like your name too, now that I know that it's Todd. So I'm so excited. This is how today has gone, but it has ended with this beautiful conversation with you. Thank you so much, Todd, for being here. Thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you for overcoming the impossible and having a mind of a champion, because anyone that has been through what you've been through and continue to overcome is just incredible. So thank you for that. And I hope everyone has the opportunity to reach out and be touched by your work and what you're doing. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me and for your good work in the world. And it's just through these conversations and these small little lights, I think is how we're going to fight the darkness. Thank you
I
for being a
think
part of it.
so. Thank you. Bye, everyone. See you next time.